Fractal Enigma presents Iron Haven, a high heat, dad's best friend, age gap, romance, written by Jace Wilder, narrated by a synthesized voice. Copyright 2025 by Jace Wilder. Production, copyright 2025 by Fractal Enigma. All rights reserved. Chapter 1. The Assessment. The parking lot of Iron Haven smelled like burnt rubber and imbish. David sat in his SUV with the engine running, hands on the steering wheel, staring at the converted warehouse through the windshield. The gym's neon sign flickered against the darkening sky. 9:03 p.m. according to his dashboard clock. 3 minutes passed when he was supposed to walk through those doors. He could still leave, put the car in reverse, text some bullshit excuse, and pretend he'd never agreed to this. Through the industrial windows, he could see them. 20-somethings with bodies carved from stone, moving through their workouts like they owned the fucking universe. A blonde woman in a sports bra hoisted a barbell overhead with perfect form. 2 guys spotted each other on bench press, their laughter audible even through the glass. David looked down at himself. The steering wheel pressed into the soft overhang of his stomach. His polo shirt, XL, and it still pulled tight across his chest and gut, rode up slightly, exposing a sliver of pale skin above his jeans. He tugged it down reflexively. 48 years old, divorced. Soft. The word echoed in his head in Karen's voice. From one of their last fights. You've let yourself go, David. You used to care about how you looked. He'd cared, once, back when he played college ball, when his body was something that worked for him instead of against him. But that was 25 years. And a marriage, and a desk job ago. Now his knees ached when he climbed stairs. His lower back seized up if he sat too long. And his reflection in the mirror looked like his father. Thick through the middle, shoulders rounding forward, skin looser than it used to be. You look like a fucking dad, he thought. And not the hot kind from commercials. Just old. A car pulled into the spot next to him. Some compact hybrid driven by a kid who couldn't be older than 22. The kid hopped out wearing joggers and a tank top that showed off arms David hadn't possessed even in his prime. He grabbed a gym bag from the back seat, slammed the door, and jogged toward the entrance without a backward glance. David's hand moved to the gear shift. His phone buzzed in the cup holder. A text from Rick. Rick says, "Caleb says, you're starting tonight. Proud of you, man. It's never too late. Text me after." David closed his eyes. Right, Rick. His best friend of 20 years. The guy who dragged him to sports bars and camping trips and all the normal guy shit that made life bearable after the divorce. Rick, who'd called him 2 weeks ago and said, "My son's a personal trainer now. Works at that new place downtown. He'll get you sorted. No excuses, Dave. You've been moping for a year." And David, weak and tired and desperate to stop feeling invisible, had said yes. He opened his eyes, turned off the engine. The sound of the door slamming behind him felt like a commitment he wasn't sure he wanted to keep. The air inside Iron Haven hit him like a wall. Sweat, rubber, disinfectant, and something metallic he couldn't name. The bass from the sound system thumped through the floor. Some aggressive remix of a song he didn't recognize. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, reflecting off mirrors that lined every wall. A girl at the front desk, nose ring, undercut, bored expression, glanced up from her phone. "Checking in?" she asked. Yeah. I have a session with Caleb." She tapped something on her tablet without looking at him. "Read. That's the one. Cool. He's on the floor. I'll let him know you're here." She gestured vaguely behind her. "You can wait by the water fountain, or just hang." David nodded and moved past the desk into the main space. It was worse inside. The gym was massive, exposed ductwork, industrial beams, chalk dust hanging in the air like fog. Free weights clanked. A woman grunted through a deadlift. Someone's workout timer beeped aggressively. Everything was loud, chaotic, and full of people who looked like they'd been born knowing how to use a squat rack. David stood near a row of benches, trying to look like he belonged. His palms were sweating. He wiped them on his jeans. He wiped them on his jeans. A guy in the corner caught his attention. Lean and sinewy, doing pull-ups with controlled, fluid movements. His back muscles bunched and released under a sweat-soaked tank top. He hit 15 reps without slowing, then dropped to the floor, rolling his shoulders. The guy turned. David's stomach dropped. Caleb? It couldn't be. The last time David had seen Rick's son, Caleb had been, 19? 20? A scrawny college kid home for Christmas. All elbows and bad posture. Talking about switching his major for the third time. That kid had worn oversized hoodies and played video games in Rick's basement, and still called David Uncle Dave, like he was 12. This was not that kid. This was a man. Caleb stood maybe 5'10", compact, but built in a way that made David think of coiled springs. His arms weren't bulky, but they were defined, veins tracing down his forearms. His shoulders capped with muscle that flexed when he reached for his water bottle. He wore black joggers slung low on his hips and a gray tank that clung to his torsos, showing the cut of his obliques, the lines of his abs. But it was his face that made David's breath catch. Sharp jawline, high cheekbones, dark hair cropped short on the sides, longer on top, and swept back carelessly. And his eyes. Jesus, when had Caleb's eyes gotten so intense? They were the same hazel green they'd always been, but now they were focused, predatory. And then those eyes landed on David. Caleb's entire face lit up. He grinned, wide, boyish, genuine, and started walking over. Uncle Dave. David's mouth went dry. He managed a weak smile. Hey, Caleb. Caleb closed the distance between them in a few long strides and pulled David into a hug before he could react. It was brief, just a quick clap on the back. But David registered the heat of Caleb's body, the smell of clean sweat and something citrus. When Caleb pulled away, he was still grinning. You actually came, Caleb said. Dad said you flaked. David forced a laugh. Yeah, well, here I am. Caleb's gaze flicked down, then back up, quick, assessing, not judgment. Exactly. More like inventory. Good, come on. Let's get you set up. He turned and headed toward the back of the gym, clearly expecting David to follow. David did, because what else was he going to do? They passed the free weights section, the squat racks, a row of punching bags. Caleb moved through the space like he owned it, nodding at a few people, stopping briefly to adjust someone's grip on a dumbbell. Everyone seemed to know him. A couple of women looked at him like they wanted to eat him alive. David tried not to notice. Tried not to think about the fact that Rick's son, the kid he used to throw footballs with, was now the kind of guy who got looked at. Here we go. Caleb stopped in front of a door marked assessment room. He pulled a key from his pocket, unlocked it, and pushed it open. After you. David stepped inside. The room was small, maybe 10 by 10. Mirrored walls on 3 sides. A single bench in the corner. A scale. A plastic bin of resistance bands. Fluorescent light overhead. Harsh and unforgiving. Caleb followed him in and shut the door behind them. The lock clicked. David's pulse kicked up. So, Caleb set his water bottle on the bench and grabbed a clipboard from a hook on the wall. He clicked a pen. All business. Standard intake. Just need some baseline measurements. Then we'll talk goals. He glanced up. Sound good? Yeah. Sure. Caleb tilted his head slightly, studying David with that same assessing look from before. You okay? You seem tense. I'm fine. David lied. Just been a while since I've done this. No worries. We'll take it slow. Caleb scribbled something on the clipboard. Then I'm gonna need. David blinked. What? For measurements. Caleb tapped the pen against the paper. Close that way. Throw off the numbers. Plus, I need to see your posture. Check for imbalances. Standard stuff, right? David swallowed. Standard. Caleb waited, expression neutral. David hesitated. His brain screamed at him to make a joke, to deflect. Nobody wants to see that, trust me. But the words stuck in his throat. Instead, he reached for the hem of his polo shirt. He pulled it off over his head, dropped it on the bench. His undershirt came next, then his jeans. He stood there in his boxers, plain gray, nothing special, and tried not to look at himself in the mirrors. But he could feel it, the heaviness of his gut, the way his chest sagged slightly without the support of his shirt, the paleness of his skin under the fluorescent light. He wanted to suck his stomach in, to stand straighter, to do something to look less pathetic. Caleb didn't react. He just stepped forward with a measuring tape in hand. Arms up. David raised his arms. Caleb wrapped the tape around his chest, pulling it snug. His fingers brushed David's skin. Warm. Clinical. He read the number aloud, wrote it down. Then the tape came around David's waist. David held his breath without meaning to, tried to keep everything pulled in tight. Caleb's hand pressed against David's stomach. Not hard. Just a light tap with his knuckles. Relax. Let it go. I need the real number. His voice was low, quiet, almost hypnotic. David exhaled. His stomach softened, pushing out against the tape. He glanced at the mirror. Caleb was behind him, measuring. But Caleb wasn't looking at the tape. He was staring at David's body. His pupils were dilated. His lips parted slightly. His gaze traveled slowly over David's shoulders, down his back, lingering on the curve of his ass in the boxers. David's heart hammered. Caleb's tongue darted out, wetting his bottom lip. Then he blinked, like he'd been caught, and looked back down at the tape. 38, he said. His voice was rougher now. He cleared his throat. Scribbled the number down. Thighs next. Caleb knelt. David froze. Caleb wrapped the tape around David's upper thigh, just below the hem of his boxers. His hands were steady, professional. But when his knuckles grazed the front of the fabric, right where the leg opening met David's groin, they lingered. 1 second. 2. David's cock twitched. Caleb's breath hitched, almost imperceptible, but David heard it. Then Caleb pulled the tape away, stood, and wrote down the measurement without looking at David. Good. All set. David didn't move. All set. He couldn't. He was half hard and mortified, and his brain was screaming at him to grab his clothes and leave. But Caleb finally looked up, met David's eyes in the mirror, and smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was knowing, hungry. You can get dressed, Caleb said softly, unless you want to do the body fat caliper test too. No. David's voice came out strangled. This is fine. Cool. Caleb turned toward the door, giving David space, but before he opened it, he glanced back over his shoulder. Same time Wednesday. David nodded, not trusting his voice. Great. I'll work up a program for you. Caleb's smile widened. This is gonna be fun, Uncle Dave. Then he left, the door clicking shut behind him. David stood alone in the mirrored room, half naked and hard, staring at his own reflection. What the fuck just happened? He had no idea, but he was terrified to find out.